Welcome to Medibiz TV. I'm Sonia Das, your host for the day. Today, Medibiz team is with Miss Helene Gaubert, an exuberant and energetic personality who is heading the recruitment wing of Saudi German Hospital. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
How does it feel to have won the World Medical Council HR Professional Excellence Award 2019?
Oh, it's an absolute honour. I was honoured to be nominated. I never thought in a million years I would win. I know I have been working within hospital HR for the last 7 years, but probably with the other candidates, I am on the younger side. So when I did get that winning email, I was jumping for joy. So it was a real pleasure, and the event was absolutely beautiful, from the execution to seeing some familiar faces, for participating in the panel discussion. Absolutely loved it.
Great. So can you please share a few details with our viewers about the Saudi German hospitals and the services you provide?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the Group Recruitment Manager, as you said, for Saudi German Hospitals Group. So I actually work for a company called MECO, which is the publicly listed company of Saudi German Hospitals. You could call it like the parent company. Now, we focus on Saudi Arabia mainly, but we have a huge scope in the region, in the MENA region. So at present, we've got about 3 hospitals in the UAE. We've got 5 hospitals in Saudi Arabia. We've got 1 hospital in Egypt with a further expansion kind of on the horizon. And then we've even got a hospital in Yemen. So I'm mainly dealing with the Saudi German Hospital Group in KSA. So overseeing the recruitment for 5 hospitals. We've got a 6th hospital in Daman opening, and that should be opening in June. Okay. The other 5 hospitals, we have Riyadh, Jeddah, Ha'il, Asir and Medina.
Okay.
It's a demanding job. It's a step up from what I'm used to before. Previously, I was working at King's College Hospital, London, so I was instrumental in driving the hospital to opening, recruiting pretty much everyone that joined the group there. So that was just a 1 hospital program. We had 2 polyclinics, but now kind of jumping up to 5, almost 6 hospitals. It's a big jump, but I'm absolutely loving it.
So all the way from London to Saudi Arabia, how is the transition and the lifestyle differences and culture differences?
It's lovely. Even when I was working in London, I was still working within the Middle East market. So, for example, I was recruiting doctors and nurses from the UK into the Middle East. So similar kind of clientele, similar kind of working hours, you could say, but then I took the permanent move here in 2015. So I like it. The summers can be a little bit unbearable. I was just saying to your colleague that I have a vitamin D deficiency. Would you believe that, living in such a sunny country? But the winters are great. You have that 6 months of cool, bearable temperatures. Absolutely love the culture. Love the social life, love the work environment as well. As you can see, we've got an absolutely beautiful office here, so I'm really enjoying it.
So you were in Saudi Arabia before coming to UAE, am I right? Or
so I've never worked in Saudi Arabia per se, but I've had a lot of clients in Saudi Arabia, so I've been working within that market space.
Okay. So so tell us about your work-life balance.
So that is actually one of the things that you'll see being discussed, especially in the UAE a lot. A lot of news articles out there and HR forums saying that there is no work-life balance per se. With my current situation, work is demanding, but at the same time, I would say that I have a nice work-life balance. I get 2 days off a week. I have quite flexible working hours in the sense that if I was to say to my manager, like, there's a conference coming up and I think it would be very good for my professional development, he's more than open for me to attend. So I have a really good supportive network here, which does help you have that work-life balance.
Great. And kindly share with us your experience in the HR industry across different regions, and also if you could tell us more about your professional milestones.
Yeah, absolutely. So the unique thing about me is that my hospital experience and HR experience, it's all I've ever done. I'm healthcare through and through. So what I can talk about is that before I was working in the UK market, now I've shifted here. So, for example, when I was living in London, although I was recruiting doctors to the Middle East, I was also bringing doctors from the Middle East and also Asia into the UK. So I was actually part of a team that was instrumental of bringing over 100 emergency medicine doctors to the UK from the Middle East and India. So we have a huge shortage of doctors in the UK, very much short, especially in emergency medicine. So I was bringing a lot of doctors, like I said, from Asia and the Middle East into UK. Then when I moved here, it's like I'm purely working on the UAE market. So I'm I've done a 360-degree turn, or 180, you could say. Like, now I'm bringing doctors from the UK into the Middle East region, and Europe and other places as well. We do a lot of recruitment from Asia as well. So milestones since I've been here, when I worked at King's College Hospital London in the UAE, I saved in around 1.8 million dirhams in recruitment agency fees for the business. I've been with Saudi German Hospitals Group for about 7 months now. I've on my way to saving 1 million riyals.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been involved in that. It's been a good project, demanding but fun.
Okay, so how do you go about it? What is your modus operandi of, saving the money, or how does it work?
So, I mean, many hospitals out here, and what I touched about on the panel discussion yesterday, is that there are a lot of financial losses that you could pin on HR. So, I mean, I have worked both sides of the fence. Before I was working in-house in an HR role for hospitals, I was an agency recruiter myself. So I know the tactics, and I know that it's effectively a money-making role. So when I moved to the other side of the fence, I wanted to kind of minimise that spend, just to save more money for the business and help it be a more healthy business overall. So I do my recruitment by a lot of methods. I mean, I have quite a large network. I have, I think it's 27,000 followers on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So I have a bit of a presence there. So a lot of my recruitment is done via LinkedIn. I do use other portals time to time, a lot of candidate referrals and things like that.
Okay. What are the procedures of your recruitment process to ensure that skilled medical professionals are recruited?
Yes, so I think because I have been doing the role for the last 7 years, I can tell if a doctor is a good doctor on paper, but then I will go through a quite thorough screening process. One thing that I absolutely love that we have here at Saudi German Hospitals is that we do have an in-house credentialing team. So we do have a benchmark to compare doctors to see if they're up to scratch to join our business. And this credentialing report that we do, it can cater for kind of doctors that have trained from any country in the world. It just shows that kind of they're on par and they're level with each other. Because the thing about the GCC region is that it is producing far too less medical graduates to staff their own hospitals. So that has meant that we have to bring 80% of medical staff from overseas. So as you can imagine, there is a lot of discrepancies in levels of training. I mean, you just can't compare two countries training with one another. It's like comparing apple and pears. So that's why we do have the in-house credentialing process. It shows that our doctors, regardless of where they have trained and their background, that they are kind of clinically on par with each other.
All right. As an HR professional, what is your idea in plugging the drain holes in the recruitment process?
So that is something that people do laugh about here. I mean, you hear it a lot in the HR industry that working in the Middle East, it's a lot slower. Like, for example, they'll say, like in the summer it slows down, in Ramadan it slows down, then you only have kind of like a few months of key work in a year. But I do like to dispel that it's not true. Basically, I do try and keep the recruitment process going as fast as I can. I think the important factors which are key is keeping in touch with the hiring managers, briefing the hiring manager throughout the recruitment process. Always try and be proactive and drive the process forward. Don't try and leave recruitment stagnant. You really do have to push things forward. And don't be afraid to make a calculated decision. I mean, I'm of the belief that, if something's pending, I don't know, you're waiting manager approval, if you do take a decision there and then, because it will help the business, even if it's the incorrect decision, but you made it in a calculated way, your manager should never be mad at you. So I've always followed that kind of rule, and it's doing fine for me.
Okay. As an expert, what are the challenges faced by the HR industry in today's scenario?
So I touched on it before. There is a global shortage of healthcare staff. It's not just unique to the Middle East. And like I said, 80% of our healthcare staff is coming from overseas. Okay. It has to be that way, because what other choice do we have? But the problems that we face around that is that we have other countries fishing in the same talent pool. For example, the nurses and doctors we're trying to recruit, the UK is also trying to recruit them, the US is, European countries. So it can get quite competitive, and it leaves employers here having to perhaps offer a more attractive package to try and entice these doctors. Another thing is turnover rates due to competition. So once upon a time, the healthcare market here was small. Now I would call it quite saturated. I think it's because investors are cottoning on that healthcare is a somewhat recession-proof business. So it means that there is a lot of competition. I mean, I've worked in situations before where I've hired a nurse and then within the probationary 6-month period, they've moved to a competitor for a few extra thousand a month. So it does happen and I don't blame them. But then it means us as employers, we do have to try and entice these staff and we do have to try and retain them. So yeah, that is an uphill battle. And going on to my next point, I think another thing that can come into play is lack of training and development. Training is expensive. It's not something that all employers are doing here, but they are waking up to it and they are offering it. And like I said yesterday, cost of training is high, but the cost of replacing staff is much higher.
All right. So as a group HR recruitment manager, what would be your tips and tricks to retain the employees?
Absolutely. So talking about the first point about global shortage, I would say to try and entice and keep staff is hold recruitment events overseas. It's something that I've done always throughout my career. I've held recruitment events in many cities in India. I've held recruitment events in the UK, Ireland, the rest of Europe. And I feel like if you are recruiting staff from that very beginning, like before they've even come to the UAE, before they have built a career for themselves here, I feel like you are winning their trust, you're getting buy-in from them, and it will make them maybe somewhat faithful to you because you have had that initial faith in them to bring them over to the GCC region, so they will at least stand by you, I hope. To minimise the turnover rates, definitely have a pool of passive candidates.
Okay.
So one thing about me, and especially going back to LinkedIn, I have 27,000 followers. I am very much engaged with them. I mean, I'm blogging every week. I keep in touch. I try and reply to every message, but you can't sometimes. And yeah, so they're passive candidates. They're candidates that may not be interested in a role with my group now, but perhaps I can hire them further down the line. So always keep a pool of passive candidates. Then on the training and development point, I think that this starts from the very beginning that they're hired. I think nobody likes joining a company and kind of just being said, right, sit down here, get on with the work. I mean, I think it's very important to have an inclusive onboarding program for new joiners. It makes them feel involved, it makes them feel active and part of the business. So even from that first day, prepare an inclusive onboarding program that will encourage staff because they'll feel like they're part of the brand. And then encourage staff further to have professional development. If there's courses that you might think is beneficial to your staff, do offer it to them because, I mean, yes, they work for you presently, but this is their career at the end of the day. They won't be with you forever. So if you help them further in their career, they will be very thankful to you.
What is your take on scarcity versus demand of qualified and skilled medical professionals in GCC?
Well, the scarcity is definitely there. As I said before, UAE is producing too few medical graduates to staff their own hospitals. So the scarcity is there. The demand is also there. And I think that, yeah, it's an uphill battle. It's something we won't serve anytime soon. There's a lot of competition internally with the UAE, such as other hospitals. The private sector is growing and growing. But then you've also got international hospitals that are also trying to recruit staff from the Middle East, Asia, and so on. So we are competing worldwide for medical talent.
Okay. And are there any impending expansion plans for Saudi German Hospital Group?
Yes, absolutely. So last week we had the grand opening of our Ajman Hospital, which is our third hospital here in the UAE.
Congratulations.
So we have Dubai, which was our flagship original hospital. We have Sharjah, and now we have Ajman. So exciting news is in June 2019, we are opening a brand new hospital in Dammam.
Okay.
Which is going to serve the eastern province of Saudi Arabia. It's a brand new geographical area for us, as most of our other hospitals are in the kind of the west. So you've got Jeddah, you've got Riyadh, you've got Medina, you've got Asir, you've got Ha'il. So it's a brand new geographical area for us. Excited to announce we've also got a hospital upcoming in Mecca. So being, I mean, one of the most important religious sites in the world, it's just going to be amazing to be able to cater for staff in that region. Overall, we have about 8 Middle East hospitals coming up, but a little bit confidential at the moment, but you will see some news very, very soon. I'm pleased to announce.
Great. So all in the 1 year's time, or?
I would say kind of within a 3-year time period, I would say. We're moving quickly. I mean, I would say the DEMAM and the Mecca project, we're looking at 1 to 2 years, but the other a little bit more on the horizon.
Great. So yes, with this, we have come to the end of our interview, and thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And it was a pleasure having you with us.
Excellent. Love to see you next year.
Great.